Hello, welcome back to my little corner of the internet. My name is Beth, and today I need to go through all of the books that I read in January and fill out in my reading journal my book of the month battle of the books. So I wanted to sit down with you today and review all of the books that I read in January and pick one, and I honestly don't know what one I'm going to pick yet. I don't know. I read a lot of good books this month. I had a really good reading month in January. I read 6 books, and 5 out of the 6 were 4-star reads, and 1 was a 5-star read, so it's really difficult to pick a good one for this month. I read 6 books in January, and there's only one that I don't have physically. It was an audiobook that I listened to, and we'll go through them in the order that I read them in the month, starting with A Quiet Life in the Country. This book was so much fun. I got this as a Christmas gift from my husband, and I opened it on Christmas Eve. So I technically started reading it then, and I finished it on January 1st, but I'm still including it because it was the first book I finished in 2025. It follows the story of a widow, Lady Hardcastle, and her lady's maid, Florence. It's written in the point of view of Florence, they call her Flo, and they have to work together to solve a murder mystery in the new town that they just moved into. I really loved Lady Hardcastle and Flo's banter. They might be servant and mistress, but Lady Hardcastle doesn't treat Flo as staff, and she genuinely treats her as an equal that just so happens to be able to go into the servants' quarters to uncover truths that the higher social classes don't have access to. And working with the police and talking to locals, they are able to piece together what happened to catch the killer. I think the main reason I loved this book so much is because it reminded me of a series that I was obsessed with as a child. That was the Mandy series. That was a mystery series tailored more towards children, but there was over 30 of them and I collected them all. I stupidly got rid of them when I Marie Kondoed my house in 2019, and I have missed them dearly. So I think it was very nostalgic for me to read this one and kind of relive those mysteries again as an adult with an adult book. Not that it's an adult book, but it's written for adults. There are 12 books in this series, and now I have to collect and read them all. 4 out of 5 stars. If it wasn't for my nostalgia, this would probably be a 3, just because it isn't very in-depth compared to other books that I read this month or just have read in general. But I do recommend this book. It's a very easy read, and I'm very interested to read the rest and to get to know the characters more, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's a high contender for my book of the month. The second book that I read in January was The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. This book was incredible. I wasn't allowed to read things like this growing up, and I've been wanting to read it for a very, very long time, so I was so excited to finally be able to do it. It was also a gift from my husband, and I started reading this on January 1st, right after I finished A Quiet Life in the Country. The mystery is incredible, and Dan Brown does such an amazing job at laying out the pieces of the puzzle, and it just keeps you guessing the entire way through the book. If you're unfamiliar with the plot, a Harvard symbologist, his name is Robert Langdon, gets a call late one night and is told that the curator of a museum was murdered and his body is covered in strange symbols. So Langdon must work together with a French cryptologist to crack the riddles and mystery left behind by the curator while trying not to be detained by the police. It's a wild goose chase with so much history and art information. I was blown away by the amount of research and dedication that went into this book. I was really sucked in by the world and the mystery, and just the writing style. It's easily one of my favorite books that I have read. This was the only book of the month that I rated 5 stars, and I think that's solely because of the immense research that went into this and how well fleshed out the book was. I will definitely be reading the rest of Dan Brown's books and the other books in the Da Vinci Code series. I'm very interested to learn more about Robert Langdon and his story and just see what else he does. I highly recommend the Da Vinci Code if you haven't read it and are even the slightest bit curious about it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Third on my list of books is The Alchemist. I blew through this book in a day. It had been on my TBR for a very long time, and I found it when I was scrolling through Pango Books trying to find the next book on this list, Winter, White, and Wicked. And so I was just like, whatever. I'm gonna throw it in there. Why not? I only have to pay shipping once then. Girl math. I had no idea how popular this book was until I started reading it and read the foreword. It was originally written in Portuguese in 1988 with over 150 million copies sold since it was first published. The Alchemist is a philosophical journey of a young shepherd boy from Spain who has a dream about a buried treasure in the pyramids in Egypt, and he's inspired to go looking for it. It's not easy for him. His journey gets derailed a lot, and it takes place over the course of a year. But man, does he learn a lot of life lessons. It talks a lot about finding and fulfilling your personal legend, which is, quote, a destiny that propels people toward what the universe thinks is best for them, and that to ignore it could lead to ruin. I do believe you have to have an open mind going into this book, as it questions the common narrative of our reality, and it can change your perspective of things. I'm definitely planning to reread this one, and I'm probably going to make my husband read it so that we can talk about it. Our fourth contender is Winter, White, and Wicked. I got this one the same time as I picked up The Alchemist. It was the January book of the month for the book club I'm in. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but overall it was a really enjoyable read. The synopsis describes this as Fantasy Road meets Frozen, and I can agree with that. It was a lot more fantasy-based than I was anticipating, and the plot wasn't what I thought it was going to be either. Silver Quine, or Silver, is our main character, who is a rig driver that lives on a remote island that is constantly plagued by winter. They have 2 seasons. It's winter and mega winter, basically. A smuggler hires Sylvie to transport a trailer to a rebel camp in the northern part of the island, and they have to race against winter to beat the defrost of the land to make it to the camp on time. I really can't say much more without giving any spoilers, but I will say that the one thing that bothered me about this book was the history didn't make a lot of sense. There was a lot of info dumping in the prologue, and I didn't feel like it was really necessary, and that it would have been better implemented in the story if it was written as like a flashback or a memory or something further along, rather than in the very beginning when you don't have any connection to the characters. Honestly, who retains a prologue? For my book club, I rated this 3.5 stars, but my book journal does not have a half-star setup, so I'm rounding up for this video. On Goodreads, I believe I rounded it up to 4 as well, but on Fable, it is 3.5 because they have the ability to have half stars. Take notes, Goodreads. I like you better. I am very curious to read the second book. I would like to see where the characters go and just how things move along. Second to last, the 5th book is In the Shadow of the Greenbrier. A stirring coming-of-age tale and gripping family saga, memorable and moving. I would agree. I picked up In the Shadow of the Greenbrier back in October when my husband and I were vacationing in West Virginia. I found a little local bookshop in the town we were staying in, and they highly promoted this book because it actually mentions that town in it. And it's based in West Virginia. It is a historical fiction that follows 4 points of views over 4 generations to unravel the mystery of what's buried under the Greenbrier Resort. The Greenbrier is an actual resort, and I had to look up pictures of it, and I'm like, damn, she did a really good job, describing this. Back in the 40s, the resort got turned into a luxury prison for Nazis. I find it very coincidental that I started reading this the day of inauguration, but I digress. It follows the great-grandfather, his name is Sol, his daughter-in-law, Sylvia, which I found it really weird that her name was Sylvia after I just finished Winter, White, and Wicked and her name was Sylvie. I always have weird crossovers and coincidences like that and things I read and music and stuff. I don't know. It's weird. And then we have Sylvia's daughter, Doreen, and Doreen's son, Jordan, who is a reporter for the Washington Post in the 90s, and he receives an anonymous letter telling him that there's something buried under the resort and that he needs to uncover the truth. It's a story about family and the hardships that they face. I really enjoyed this book and the characters. I really felt connected to them and wanted them to succeed. I wanted good things to happen to them. It's a little sad, but it does have a happy ending. It's an easy-to-read slice-of-life mystery, and overall, just very good. I read a lot of mysteries this month. And last but not least, Sorcery and Small Magics. I listened to this one as an audiobook, so I don't have the book to fidget with, which is kind of sad. I listened to it on Spotify. If you have a premium membership, there are thousands of audiobooks on there for free, and I really need to start listening to those. I knew nothing about this book going in except the synopsis, and that's typically what I do for books. I listened to this while I was crafting. I technically finished this one on February 2nd, but I listened to a majority of it in January and only had 2 hours left, and I didn't get to listen on February 1st, so I'm including it for January. The story is about Leo Vander Lovage, who is a scribe of magic, and Leo can only scribe spells. He's not able to cast them. You're either a scribe or a caster in this world. You can't be both. You can, but there are repercussions. The magic hurts you. When there's a mix-up with the spells, Leo is accidentally cursed by his nemesis, Sebastian Grimm, and rather than being caught using forbidden magic, they work together to find a powerful sorcerer who is rumored to be a master at counterspells. Together, they have to venture into the Wildwood to face monsters, fantasy and non, in hopes of finding the sorcerer and undoing the curse. I was pleasantly surprised by this book, and I really enjoyed the relationship of the main characters and the forced proximity. I don't read a lot of forced proximity things, so that was a nice little change up. The magic system was really cool that you can only be one or the other. Someone would scribe something and then the other would be able to cast it. There's minor magic and grand magic, and Leo doesn't trust himself to cast grand magic, so he only messes around with minor things like being able to snap your fingers and turn someone's hair pink or conjure butterflies. But I thought the magic system was really cool and that it made sense for the world. It was a very suspenseful book with a gripping plot, and I enjoyed it a lot. And that concludes my short and sweet reviews of all the books I read in January. Now I have to pick a favorite. I'll be honest, I've narrowed it down to 2, and you can probably guess which 2 that is. A Quiet Life in the Country and The Da Vinci Code. You would automatically think that I'd pick this one because it was the only 5 stars, but this one was so nostalgic for me and I just loved it so much, I don't know which one to choose. I think, in the grand scheme of things, because of the nostalgia and the excitement that I get thinking about the rest of this series, being able to collect it all, and that it will be continued enjoyment for the rest of my life, I'm gonna pick A Quiet Life in the Country as my January Battle of the Books. I'm sorry, Da Vinci Code, you really should have had it, but the nostalgia beat ya. Here it is, my bracket in my little book journal. I will fill her in. It was too long to fit on the line, but I don't care. Since I didn't know which one I was going to pick, I didn't print out my little book cover. I will have to print one out to put on here. I'll just have to do that off camera. It feels good to have read 6 books in a month. I'm proud of myself, and I'm excited to keep going with the year. An honorable mention is The Poppy War. I started it in January, but I'm only like a third of the way through, so obviously it's not going to be in this video, but we'll talk about it in February. This book journal has been one of my favorite things of 2025. It's been so fun to fill it out and print out my little book covers, put my reviews in here and fill it all out. I need to do my Sorcery and Small Magics review yet. But look at this. Look at it. How cute is that? You got my little book covers in there? Oh, I love it so much. I have been posting shorts on here of me filling this out. They are TikToks that I'm just reposting to YouTube. So thank you for watching and hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this video and my take on all of the books that I read this month. I have a couple other books that I want to do some reviews on in the next couple months, but I have no set plan or schedule, so they will just arrive whenever they arrive. So I would like to know, have you read any of these books that I did in January? Let's discuss them down in the comments. I'd like to know what you thought. Or if there's any that interested you and you are going to be picking them up, let me know. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a good one. Bye.